Ladies and gentlemen, we all face moments when emotions threaten to take over, when the pressure mounts, when the stakes are high, when everything inside us screams to react rather than respond. In those moments, the difference between success and failure, between leadership and chaos, is not about intelligence or talent. It's about clarity. It's about control. And most importantly, it's about trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the process, and trust in those around you. Pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is the signal that something matters. It means we care. It means we are invested. But emotions, if left unchecked, cloud our judgment, distort reality, and push us toward decisions we regret. The key is not to suppress them, but to understand them, to step back and recognize that emotions are simply signals, not directives. Fear tells us something is at stake. Anger tells us something is unjust. Frustration tells us there's an obstacle. None of these emotions require immediate action. They require awareness. In moments of pressure, the instinct is to react, to fight, to flee, to argue, to defend. But true control comes when we learn to pause, to take a breath, to create space between the emotion and the action. That space is where clarity lives. That space is where great decisions are made. That space is where leaders rise. The best decisions are never made in panic. They are made in perspective. And perspective is a discipline. It means zooming out when everything in you wants to zoom in. It means asking questions before making assumptions. It means listening before speaking. And more than anything, it means remembering why you're here in the first place. Pressure is temporary, but the choices we make under pressure define us long after the moment has passed. We cannot eliminate stress, but we can master how we respond to it. We cannot prevent emotions, but we can learn not to be ruled by them. And the ones who do, those are the ones who think clearly when others crumble. Those are the ones who stand tall when the ground beneath them shakes. Those are the ones who inspire, who lead, who change the world not by force, but by example. In the high-pressure moments of life, when emotions surge and clarity feels just out of reach, the first and most crucial step toward controlling emotions and thinking clearly is awareness. Awareness is not just about recognizing that we are feeling something. It is about deeply understanding what we are feeling, why we are feeling it, and how those emotions are influencing our thoughts and actions. Without awareness, we are at the mercy of our impulses, reacting to situations rather than responding with intention. But with awareness, we regain control. We take ownership of our emotions rather than letting them dictate our decisions. Everything starts with noticing. The ability to recognize what is happening inside of us at any given moment is the foundation for emotional control. Often we think of emotions as something that suddenly overwhelms us, as if they come out of nowhere. But in reality, they always have a source. There is always a trigger, an event, a thought, or even a memory that sparks the emotional response. When we become aware of these triggers, we give ourselves the power to pause, to assess, and to choose our response rather than being driven by an automatic reaction. Imagine a leader in a crisis. The stakes are high. People are looking to them for direction, and internally fear and anxiety begin to rise. Without awareness, this leader may lash out, shut down, or make a rash decision that only worsens the situation. But with awareness, they recognize what is happening within themselves. They feel the fear, but do not let it consume them. They acknowledge the anxiety, but do not let it dictate their words. Instead of reacting impulsively, they create space for clarity. That space is everything. It is the difference between saying something in anger and holding back to choose a wiser response. It is the difference between making a rushed decision under pressure and taking a moment to think things through. It is the difference between letting stress control us and learning to control stress. But awareness does not happen automatically. It is a skill that must be cultivated. It begins with paying attention to our own patterns, how we typically respond to stress, what situations trigger certain emotions, and how those emotions manifest in our behavior. Some people experience anger as tension in their body, a racing heart, or clenched fists. Others experience anxiety as a tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, or an inability to focus. By noticing these signals, we can catch ourselves before emotions take over completely. One of the most effective ways to build awareness is through reflection. Taking time at the end of the day to look back on moments of emotional intensity can reveal patterns we may not have noticed in the heat of the moment. What triggered that frustration in the meeting? Why did that comment from a colleague feel so personal? What caused that sense of panic before making a decision? The more we reflect, the more we start to notice these triggers in real time, allowing us to respond with greater wisdom. Another powerful tool for increasing awareness is mindfulness. This does not mean sitting in silence for hours a day, but simply practicing the habit of being present in the moment. When we are mindful, we are less likely to be swept away by emotions because we are fully engaged with what is happening right now, rather than reacting to past wounds or future fears. Something as simple as taking a deep breath before speaking in a tense situation can make all the difference in how we respond. Awareness also extends beyond ourselves. When we develop a keen sense of our own emotions, we also become better at recognizing emotions in others. This allows us to navigate difficult conversations, understand the needs of those around us, and approach conflict with empathy rather than defensiveness. Great leaders, great thinkers, and great decision makers all have this ability, not because they suppress emotions, but because they are fully aware of them and know how to channel them effectively. Without awareness, we are driven by impulse. With awareness, we create choice. The first step in mastering emotions is not about control in the traditional sense, it is about understanding. When we understand our emotions, we can work with them rather than against them. We can harness their energy rather than being consumed by them. And most importantly, we can make decisions not based on fleeting feelings, but on the clarity and wisdom that awareness brings. In moments of high pressure, when emotions surge and the mind races, the difference between a reactive mistake and a thoughtful decision comes down to one critical skill: the ability to pause. Pausing is not a sign of hesitation or weakness. It is a deliberate action that creates space between emotion and response, between impulse and clarity. It is the tool that allows us to regain control of our thoughts before emotions push us into actions we may regret. In that brief moment of stillness, we reclaim our ability to think clearly and respond with purpose. The natural tendency in stressful situations is to react immediately. Our brains are wired for survival, constantly scanning for threats and preparing us for fight or flight. When we experience intense emotions, anger, fear, frustration, our instincts tell us to act fast. But not every situation requires an instant reaction. In fact, in many cases, an immediate response fueled by emotion leads to poor judgment. When we pause, even for a few seconds, we interrupt that automatic reaction. We create the opportunity to assess the situation, consider our options, and choose the best course of action, rather than defaulting to an emotional impulse. Consider an argument at work, where a colleague criticizes an idea in a way that feels unfair. The instant reaction might be to fire back defensively, to counterattack with equal force. But what happens when we pause? Instead of escalating the situation, we give ourselves a moment to breathe, to process the words, and to separate the criticism from personal feelings. In that pause, we can shift from reacting emotionally to responding rationally. Maybe the criticism contains valuable feedback. Maybe the colleague is having a bad day and their tone is not personal. Maybe there is a better way to engage in the conversation that leads to a productive outcome rather than conflict. Pausing also allows us to recognize when we are being hijacked by emotion. Strong emotions distort our perception, making problems seem bigger than they are and making solutions harder to see. When we take a step back even briefly, we allow the rational part of our brain to catch up with the emotional part. We regain perspective. We remind ourselves of the bigger picture. We shift from seeing only the problem to considering potential solutions. This is why the best leaders and decision makers practice the art of the pause. They understand that a few seconds of stillness can prevent hours, days, or even years of regret from a bad decision made in haste. There are simple yet powerful ways to incorporate the pause into everyday life. One of the most effective is the deep breath. When emotions rise, taking a slow, deliberate breath forces a reset. It signals to the brain that there is no immediate danger, reducing stress and bringing clarity. Another technique is silently counting to 5 before speaking in a heated discussion. Those few seconds can make all the difference in preventing an emotional reaction that could damage relationships or credibility. Pausing is not just about preventing negative reactions, it is also about creating space for better choices. It gives us the chance to ask ourselves important questions. Is my reaction helping or hurting this situation? What outcome do I actually want? What is the best way to move forward? When we take the time to answer these questions before acting, we ensure that our decisions align with our long-term goals rather than being dictated by short-term emotions. Beyond individual decision-making, pausing is a powerful tool in leadership and team dynamics. Leaders who practice the pause set an example for those around them. They show that patience and thoughtfulness lead to better outcomes than impulsivity and aggression. They demonstrate that control over one's emotions is not about suppression, but about intentional action. Teams that embrace this approach cultivate a culture of thoughtful communication, reducing unnecessary conflict and fostering mutual respect. Pausing also strengthens resilience. Life is unpredictable, and challenges will always arise. Those who have mastered the ability to pause before reacting develop a greater sense of emotional stability. They are less easily rattled by external circumstances, less prone to making fear-driven decisions, and more equipped to navigate uncertainty with confidence. When the pressure is on, they do not crumble. They compose themselves, assess the situation, and proceed with purpose. The power of the pause is simple but profound. It is a moment of control in an otherwise chaotic situation. It is a tool that allows emotions to settle and rational thinking to take over. It is the difference between being driven by emotion and being in charge of it. Those who embrace the pause find that they not only make better decisions, but they also experience less stress, build stronger relationships, and gain the trust and respect of those around them. The ability to pause is the foundation of emotional mastery, and it is available to anyone willing to practice. When emotions run high and the weight of a moment feels overwhelming, the ability to step back and see the bigger picture becomes the most powerful tool in maintaining control. Perspective is what separates those who crumble under pressure from those who rise above it. It is not about ignoring emotions or pretending they do not exist. It is about shifting the focus from the immediate emotional reaction to the broader reality of the situation. It is about seeing beyond the problem to the possibilities, beyond the frustration to the lesson, beyond the challenge to the opportunity. In high-pressure situations, emotions often distort reality. A single mistake can feel like a disaster. A difficult conversation can seem like an attack. A setback can appear to be the end of the road. The brain, driven by emotion, zooms in on the problem, magnifying it until it feels all-consuming. This tunnel vision creates a sense of urgency and panic that leads to poor decisions, but perspective breaks that cycle. It forces us to zoom out, to look at the situation from a wider angle, and to ask, how much will this matter in a week, a month, a year? What is the lesson in this experience? What can I do to move forward rather than stay stuck in frustration? Perspective is what allows a leader to see a crisis not as the end, but as a turning point. It is what helps a person under stress recognize that setbacks are temporary, not permanent. It is what enables someone in conflict to see the other person's point of view rather than only their own frustration. Perspective transforms emotions from obstacles into tools for growth and learning. One of the greatest challenges in emotional control is the feeling of being trapped in a situation, as if there are no options. But that feeling is often an illusion created by stress and fear. When we shift our perspective, we realize that there is always a choice. There is always another way to look at the situation, always another step to take, always another solution waiting to be found. This simple realization changes everything. It turns helplessness into empowerment. It turns frustration into problem solving. It turns fear into confidence. A practical way to develop perspective in emotional moments is to imagine advising a friend in the same situation. If someone else were experiencing the exact challenge, what advice would we give them? Often we are far more rational and clear-minded when helping others than when dealing with our own emotions. By stepping outside of ourselves for a moment, we gain clarity on what truly matters and what the best course of action might be. Another powerful way to build perspective is through gratitude. When stress or anger takes over, it becomes easy to focus only on what is going wrong, but shifting attention to what is still good, still strong, still working, creates an immediate change in emotional state. Gratitude reminds us that no single situation defines us, that challenges do not erase all that we have accomplished, and that even in difficult moments, there is something to appreciate. This shift in focus does not make problems disappear, but it changes how we approach them. It moves us from dwelling on negativity to actively seeking solutions. Perspective also requires patience. In the heat of the moment, emotions demand immediate action. But taking a step back, allowing time for emotions to settle, and then reassessing the situation leads to much better decisions. Time creates space for logic to balance emotion, for wisdom to replace impulse, and for clarity to emerge. Often, what feels like an insurmountable problem in one moment seems far more manageable after stepping away and allowing time to provide a new outlook. This ability to shift perspective is not just about handling stress. It is about becoming more resilient, more adaptable, and more capable of navigating life's inevitable challenges. It strengthens relationships by helping us see things from another person's point of view. It makes us better leaders by allowing us to focus on long-term solutions rather than short-term frustrations. It gives us the ability to remain calm under pressure, to make better decisions, and to inspire confidence in those around us. The greatest leaders, thinkers, and problem solvers in history have all had one thing in common: the ability to see beyond the moment. They have understood that emotions are temporary, but decisions have lasting impact. They have trained themselves to step back, to breathe, and to view situations through a lens of wisdom rather than reaction. This is not a trait that people are born with. It is a skill that can be learned, practiced, and strengthened over time. Perspective is a choice. It is the choice to look beyond frustration and see the lesson. It is the choice to step away from stress and see the opportunity. It is the choice to control emotions rather than letting emotions control us. Those who develop this ability do not just navigate life more effectively. They lead, they inspire, and they succeed where others falter. The power of intentional response and emotional control. Developing intentional responses requires practice, and one of the most effective ways to build this skill is through self-awareness. Recognizing personal emotional triggers allows us to anticipate how we might react in certain situations. If we know that criticism makes us defensive, we can prepare ourselves to pause before responding. If we recognize that stress makes us impatient, we can remind ourselves to slow down and breathe. Awareness gives us the power to intercept emotional reactions before they take over. Another important aspect of intentional response is emotional regulation. Emotions are not meant to be ignored, but they should not control us. Finding healthy ways to process emotions, such as journaling, meditation, or talking to a trusted friend, prevents them from building up and exploding at the wrong moment. When emotions are acknowledged and understood, they lose their power to dictate our actions. Instead of being ruled by anger, fear, or frustration, we gain the ability to channel those emotions productively. Intentional response also strengthens leadership. Whether leading a team, a family, or even just ourselves, the ability to remain composed under pressure inspires confidence in others. People gravitate toward those who handle challenges with wisdom rather than impulsiveness. Great leaders are not those who never feel emotion, but those who know how to harness emotion in a way that drives positive action. They recognize that emotional intelligence is just as important as intellectual ability in making sound decisions and building strong relationships. Over time, responding with intention becomes second nature. What begins as a conscious effort eventually transforms into an ingrained habit. Emotional control does not mean being detached or emotionless. It means being fully aware of emotions while choosing the best response in any situation. It is the ability to remain grounded in the face of adversity, to think clearly when others panic, and to act with wisdom rather than impulse. Those who master intentional response gain the ultimate power, not power over others, but power over themselves. The power of emotional resilience in emotional control. Resilience is the key to maintaining control in high-pressure situations. It is not about avoiding difficulties or suppressing emotions, but about developing the inner strength to navigate challenges without being overwhelmed. Resilience allows us to bounce back from setbacks, face adversity with confidence, and maintain clarity even when emotions are running high. It is the ability to endure stress, frustration, and uncertainty without allowing them to dictate our actions or cloud our judgment. Those who cultivate emotional resilience do not crumble under pressure. They adapt, learn, and emerge stronger. Resilience begins with understanding that emotions are temporary. In the heat of the moment, stress and frustration can feel overwhelming, as if they will last forever. But emotions, like waves, rise and fall. They come and go. When we recognize this, we stop making permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. We develop the patience to let emotions pass before taking action. This simple awareness changes everything. It allows us to step back, take a deep breath, and remind ourselves that no single situation defines us. No failure is final. No challenge is insurmountable. One of the greatest threats to emotional resilience is negative self-talk. When faced with setbacks, it is easy to spiral into thoughts of doubt, blame, or inadequacy. But resilient individuals recognize that self-talk shapes their reality. Instead of dwelling on mistakes, they focus on solutions. Instead of seeing failure as a reflection of their worth, they view it as an opportunity to grow. This shift in mindset does not happen overnight. It is a habit that must be cultivated. It requires actively challenging negative thoughts, replacing them with more constructive ones, and reminding ourselves that setbacks do not define our capabilities. Perspective plays a significant role in resilience. When we view challenges as obstacles, they feel overwhelming, but when we see them as opportunities for growth, they become stepping stones to greater strength. Every difficult situation holds a lesson. Every moment of pressure is a chance to develop patience, confidence, and adaptability. Resilient individuals train themselves to ask, "What can I learn from this?" rather than "Why is this happening to me?" This simple shift transforms difficulties from sources of frustration into powerful learning experiences. Another crucial aspect of emotional resilience is maintaining a sense of control. Stress often feels unbearable when we believe we have no power over a situation. But even in the most challenging circumstances, there is always something within our control: our attitude, our response, our perspective. Focusing on what can be controlled rather than what cannot be controlled reduces anxiety and creates a sense of empowerment. It shifts energy away from dwelling on problems and toward taking constructive action. Building resilience also requires developing healthy coping mechanisms. Many people try to escape stress through avoidance, distraction, or unhealthy habits. But true resilience comes from facing emotions directly and managing them in ways that promote long-term well-being. This could mean practicing mindfulness, engaging in physical activity, seeking support from trusted individuals, or simply taking time to reset and recharge. Resilient individuals understand that self-care is not a luxury, it is a necessity. They prioritize habits that strengthen their mental and emotional health, knowing that these habits enable them to handle stress more effectively. Relationships play a vital role in resilience as well. No one navigates life's challenges alone. Having a strong support system, whether it is friends, family, mentors, or colleagues, provides the encouragement and perspective needed to stay grounded during difficult times. Resilient individuals are not afraid to ask for help, to lean on others when needed, and to offer support in return. They understand that strength is not about handling everything alone, but about knowing when to seek guidance and collaboration. Adaptability is another hallmark of emotional resilience. Life is unpredictable, and those who thrive are the ones who embrace change rather than resist it. Resilient individuals remain flexible, open to new possibilities, and willing to adjust their approach when circumstances shift. They do not cling to past mistakes or get stuck in frustration when things do not go as planned. Instead, they view change as a natural part of growth and respond with creativity, problem-solving, and perseverance. Resilience is not about avoiding emotions, but about mastering them. It is about recognizing that we have the strength to handle whatever comes our way. It is about choosing to stand firm in the face of adversity rather than letting it knock us down. It is about understanding that challenges do not define us, our response to them does. The most emotionally resilient individuals are not the ones who never face difficulties, but the ones who refuse to let those difficulties break them. They do not just survive, they thrive.